What's up, Prig Pals? As you've doubtless come to realize by now, there are a plethora of topics within the larger field of English usage. And sometimes keeping ourselves from slipping up can be about as difficult as preserving that pristine white dress shirt at an Italian restaurant. So, lest a careful reader or listener think you bereft of literacy, I'm here to give you 3 more words you may have been misusing. Ryan Kelly here, your square esquire and lovable prig, giving all manner of writers, rewriters, and speakers tips and tidbits on the lexical tools of their trade, the better that they might be able to distinguish themselves as careful users of the language and take their communication skills from enough to effective. I release videos every other Thursday, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a chance to learn the best ways with words. With that said, let's get underway. Our first word is plethora. So plump and pretty, and obviously a synonym for plenty, right? Right? Wrong. You see, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the word plethora actually originated in the field of medicine in the mid to late 16th century, in fact. And it first referred to an overabundance of blood, or other bodily fluid, before referring to an excessive volume of blood, or excessive fullness of blood vessels. Tabor's Cyclopedic Medical Dictionary holds that the word still carries both shades of meaning. But for our purposes, perhaps it suffices to lay down first that the word plethora means too much. Whether of a good thing or something is really beside the point. Thus, when we encounter a sentence such as this one from the Washington Post, smart climate mitigation fosters a healthier environment, generates a plethora of jobs, and helps protect us from climate disasters. We have to wonder whether the writer bothered to consult a reputable dictionary and actually meant to suggest that there is such a thing as too many open jobs. Maybe not so far-fetched now that I think about it. Or just use the sound test to select plethora instead of the far more familiar word it bears but a specious resemblance to. Bill Bryson, in his Facts on File Dictionary of Troublesome Words, was among the first to state the case. Plethora is not merely a lot, it is an excessive amount, a superabundance. You know, like the books on my shelf at this point. Our next word, bereft, probably wouldn't be the victim of so much abuse if folks would simply take heed of its linguistic ancestry. A potentially fallacious logic if misapplied, of course, but never to be discounted where it has point. In this instance, a glance at the Oxford English Dictionary tells us that the word comes to us from the Old English refian, which meant to plunder, spoil, or rob. That Old English word eventually became the rare but still occasionally seen reeve. It was only a matter of adding the prefix be to arrive at the verb bereave and, eventually, its derivative adjective, bereft. Now consider the fact that we all recognize that bereavement is the state of having recently lost a loved one. Consider also that its cognate bereft should contain the self-same idea of deprivation, and this next example from the Washington Post seems quite confounding. The region is nearly bereft of natural fresh streams and rivers. Did the writer mean to convey that a once riparian region had been reduced to an arid wasteland? Or was the word devoid unfairly displaced? Yes, it's the latter. Our friend Bill Bryson thought as much back in 1984, and Brian Garner, over 30 years later, explicitly concurred in his own usage guide. So remember that bereft of patience, for example, is best applied to an exasperated parent whose patience has been depleted, not a toddler who probably had no patience to start with. Our final word is pristine, perhaps the one most in need of renewal, revival, repristination. See where I'm going with this? The Oxford English Dictionary defines the adjective pristine as of or relating to the earliest period or state, original, former, primitive, ancient, a meaning it's held since at least the 16th century. It was perhaps a natural enough extension for it to be used beginning in the 20th century to mean unspoiled by human interference, untouched, pure, but its mid-20th century extension to mean spotless, pure in color, fresh, clean, or as good as new, was a bridge too far for many educated writers and speakers. Sure, a fly frozen in amber is pristine, maybe even a lush green field that has yet to fall victim to suburban development. But this? The marble floor, usually pristine, was covered with a slippery powder, likely the result of spent chemical fire extinguishers and other debris. Seems the author noted that the word pristine rhymes with clean and ran with it, as many writers do, according to Eric Winsberg in his revision of Wilson Follett's Modern American Usage. Of course, it is possible to be too conservative in this matter. In his 1981 guide to the British Broadcasting Corporation, Robert Birchfield, who was then the chief editor of the Oxford English Dictionary, seemingly wished to restrict the word pristine to the first meaning of ancient, so no pristine rainforests or valleys for us, let alone marble floors. Several years later, however, he'd have a complete change of heart, writing in his 1996 revision of Fowler's Modern English Usage that it was becoming increasingly difficult to find fault with many of the weakened uses. Still, to my mind, he went from one extreme to the other. He discouraged the use of pristine in reference to a freshly fallen blanket of snow and a litter-free fairway alike. Now he was throwing up the sponge completely when, according to Janet Woodcutt in her revision of Eric Partridge's Usage and Abusage, the weakened senses were not yet acceptable in conservative circles. I think a safer rule, when neither unduly restrictive nor insufferably lax, is to refrain from using the word pristine to refer to man-made objects. Carpets, coffee cups, coats of paint, you get the idea. Of course, as a rare book collector, I suppose one can make an exception for exceptionally old items that are being sold in fine condition. But to see how quickly latitude can turn to ludicrousness, consider for a moment the idea of a pristine 2015 Honda Civic. Now before you go and sin no more when it comes to these three words, be sure to like and share the video if you got value. The YouTube algorithm really likes it, and it helps get the information out there to those who might need to know. And if you think there are other words that I should cover, feel free to leave a comment below. Don't be shy, but be careful. And remember, propriety is always in.